1984. In a dark arcade, a single coin drops into the slot. The screen glows blue, an endless ocean scrolling beneath a lone fighter plane. No story screen, no tutorial, just a wave of enemy aircraft, a thumb on the fire button, and the pull of one more try. This is 1942, the little arcade game that flew a Japanese studio straight into the history books. This is the story of how it was made, the real war it borrowed from. And why, more than 40 years later, it's ready to fly again, a little better, with a new kind of help. To tell this story, we have to go back to a young company with something to prove. Capcom had only just taken that name in 1983, short for Capsule Computers. This was the golden age of the arcade, rooms full of glowing cabinets, the crash and chime of coin-ops, kids trading high scores like currency. But Capcom's first titles, Vulgus, Sun Sun, Pirate Ship Hijmaru, had come and gone without setting the world alight. The studio needed a winner, and it needed one fast. They handed the job to a restless young designer named Yoshiki Okamoto and gave him just over 2 months. Okamoto's team started building a shooter set in space, all lasers and starfields in the mold of the games of the day. But when they put it in front of players, it fell flat. So they tore it down and asked a simple question. What if, instead of outer space, the battlefield was one that actually happened? They pointed the game at the skies over the Pacific in the Second World War, and everything clicked. To feel why 1942 mattered, picture the world it was born into. The arcade of the mid-80s was a cathedral of light and noise, rows of cabinets glowing in the dark, the roar of 100 attract screens all shouting at once, quarters stacked on the glass to call the next game. After a crash had gutted the home console business in America, it was Japan that carried the torch, and the arcade was where the cutting edge lived. A single hit machine could earn back its price in a matter of weeks. The competition was ferocious, the margins were thin, and the only thing that mattered was whether a stranger would part with one more coin. Into that gold rush, Capcom sent a little plane and an endless blue ocean. To understand 1942, you have to understand the man behind it. Yoshiki Okamoto had come from Konami, where he designed a pair of inventive shooters, Time Pilot and Gyros. As the story goes, he'd been told to make a driving game, built shooters instead, and clashed his way out the door. Capcom took him in 1983, and 1942 became his first game there. It would not be his last mark on history. This same designer would go on to produce Final Fight, and then Street Fighter II, a game that would gross more than $10 billion and reshape the entire industry. He would rise to become Capcom's head of development and shepherd the first Resident Evil into the world. But before the world knew his name, there was a little plane, an endless ocean, and 2 months on the clock. Here is the strange and brilliant heart of 1942. It was made in Japan by a Japanese studio, and yet the player flies an American fighter, shooting down the Japanese air fleet with a single objective: reach Tokyo. It was a deliberate choice. Capcom wanted this game to travel, to fill cabinets in American arcades, so they cast the player as the underdog flying toward the enemy capital. The plane they chose was one of the most recognizable aircraft of the entire war, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. In the game, they called it the Super Ace. In real life, it had another name entirely. The P-38 Lightning was unlike anything else in the sky. Designed by the legendary Clarence Kelly Johnson, it solved an impossible problem. No single engine of the era was powerful enough, with a radical shape, twin booms, twin engines with counter-rotating propellers to cancel out the torque, and a central pod holding the pilot and the guns. And what guns? Everything was clustered in the nose, a 20mm cannon and 450 caliber machine guns, firing in a single concentrated stream, deadly at any range. It was fast, it flew far, and it did everything: interceptor, long-range escort, photo reconnaissance. America's two greatest aces, Richard Bong with 40 kills and Thomas Maguire with 38 both earned their records in the Pacific flying this plane. The Germans are said to have called it the fork-tailed devil. The Japanese called it 2 planes, 1 pilot. And in April 1943, 16 P-38s flew a 1,000-mile round trip to intercept and kill Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the man who had planned Pearl Harbor, after codebreakers cracked his travel schedule out of the air. That is the machine you are flying in 1942. And the planes swarming toward you, those are Zeros. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero was the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy, designed by Jiro Horikoshi around a single obsession: lightness. Horikoshi stripped away every ounce he could, using a new, stronger alloy and a feather-light frame. The result was breathtaking, a fighter that could outturn anything the Allies had, with a range of 1,600 miles. But that lightness came at a terrible price. The Zero carried no armor for its pilot and no self-sealing fuel tanks. It was a duelist with a glass jaw. Early in the war it was untouchable, until in the summer of 1942, the Americans recovered a nearly intact Zero from an Alaskan bog and finally learned its secrets. Pilots developed new tactics, like the Thatch Weave, and new fighters like the Hellcat, built to beat it. Don't turn with a Zero, that was the lesson. Boom, zoom, and dive away, where its controls turned to stone. The glass jaw had been found. So why 1942? Because 1942 was the year the tide turned, and it turned at a tiny atoll called Midway. In June of that year, the Imperial Navy sailed east to finish what Pearl Harbor had started. They never got the chance. American codebreakers under Commander Joseph Rochefort had partially cracked the Japanese naval code and suspected the target was a place they only knew as AF. To be sure, they had Midway send a radio message in the clear that its water plant had broken down. When Japanese signals soon reported that AF is short on water, the trap was set. The Japanese carriers were caught mid-rearming, their decks a tangle of fuel lines and bombs, when American dive bombers fell out of the sun. In roughly 5 fateful minutes, 3 carriers were turned into infernos, a 4th followed by nightfall. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Huryu, 4 of the 6 that had struck Pearl Harbor, all gone, along with hundreds of irreplaceable veteran aircrew. It was the hinge on which the entire Pacific War would swing. Now, a moment of honesty. The P-38 wasn't actually dueling over the carriers at Midway. It reached the Pacific later that year. 1942, the game, was never a simulation. It was arcade fantasy, stitching the icons of a real war into 90 electric seconds at a time. And that is exactly why it worked. Strip 1942 down and its genius is in 3 ideas. First, the loop. Press one button and your plane rolls into a full 360-degree dive, untouchable for a heartbeat, but unable to fire. You only get a few per life, so every loop is a gamble, dodge now or save it. Second, the formations. Wipe out an entire squadron of red planes without letting one escape, and the last one drops a POW power-up, a wider gun, an extra life, or a pair of wingmen that flank you and double your fire. And third, the pace. No filler, no mercy. Wave after wave, 32 stages all the way to Tokyo. It was pick up and play perfection, easy to understand in one coin and almost impossible to put down. For the players chasing a single credit clear, it became an obsession. And listen, every arcade game of this era had to fight to be heard over a room full of others, and 1942 had its own voice. A brisk, martial march composed by Yako Mori, punched out in a handful of chiptune channels. It's the kind of tune that burrows into your memory after a single play. We loved that detail so much that, in our own rebuilt version, the heaviest boss you'll face is named Yako, a quiet salute to the composer who gave the original its heartbeat. 1942 became Capcom's breakout hit, and it went home with a generation. The Nintendo port sold over 1 million copies, even though it groaned with slowdown and flicker, a rushed conversion that became almost as famous as the game itself, and it started a dynasty. 1943, the Battle of Midway followed in 1987, adding health and bombs. In 1943, Kai, then 1941, Counterattack, and finally in 1996, the gorgeous 19XX, the War Against Destiny. It sat in a proud lineage of scrolling shooters, descended from Space Invaders, cousin to Xevious and Galaga, and it helped push that whole genre forward. The little space game that failed had become one of the founding pillars of the shoot 'em up and helped build Capcom into a giant. Which brings us to now. Games like 1942 were built by tiny teams, under brutal deadlines, out of raw ideas and clever tricks. That spirit never died, it just went quiet. So we asked our own question, what happens when that old school spirit meets a modern tool? We rebuilt 1942 from a single written prompt and watched an AI lay down a playable vertical shooter in minutes. Then we did what Okamoto's team did, we iterated. We drew an accurate P-38 and swarms of zeros by hand in code. We added 3 rotating bosses, a heavy bomber, a gunship, a battleship. We built the loop, the POW formations, the wingmen, screen shake, tracer fire, and a real arcade high scoreboard that saves your name. Everything you've seen flying across this screen is that game, brand new, entirely original, no stock footage, no borrowed music. This is the promise of old school, reborn a little better with AI. The same lightning-in-a-bottle ideas, now in the hands of anyone with a good one. 1942 walked so 1,000 games could fly. Now it's your turn to take the controls.